Hi, it's Nichol Magouirk, and today I have a card showcasing Mama Elephant stamps and using a watercolor technique with Tim Holtz Distress ink. What I first did was I trimmed down this piece of watercolor paper to about, I believe it's 3¼ by 4½ inches. And I'm using watercolor paper here today because I'm going to be using quite a bit of water and I didn't want my paper to warp, and so this was a better choice than just traditional paper. You could also do the exact same thing like on some Nina white cardstock. You just might want to kind of watch how much water you're using. I'm using quite a bit, so it kind of pools up on the water and it tends to make some regular paper warp. Now I'm using the picked raspberry and spun sugar and mowed lawn inks here. You can see I've already stamped one of the larger florals from the Water Blooms stamp set, and I'm going to speed through this. I stamped the smaller one with spun sugar. Now these little dots here I'm stamping using Festive Berries, which I believe is a holiday or Christmassy type color, but I found it to be a little bit less vibrant red maybe than the Barn Door Distress ink. I really like how it looks with pinks, especially like the bright pink of the picked raspberry here. So I think it's a nice complement to this. So what I'm doing is inking up my stamp with the Distress ink, then taking the mini mister, spritzing it about 1 or 2 times to make the water pool up on the stamp, and then stamping it on my project. It gives it a much softer, more watercolor type look than just inking up the image and stamping it on paper like I did with the other cards that I did earlier in this release for the Stampede. So I'm just going to fill all this in. Now you see that I stamped the greeting and the frame. The greeting is actually from Up and Away, and the frame is from the BU stamp set. After I had stamped it, I thought I would stamp around it, and maybe if I had masked it off, I could have done that, but I decided I didn't really want this to be one-dimensional. So even though it's there, it's a great placement for where I'm going to put my greeting. I'm just going to go ahead and take a scrap of my watercolor paper because it's handy. I could have used a different paper if I wanted to. I'm going to ink up my frame here and stamp that. That's the wet cement ink from Hero Arts. Then I'll stamp the inside grid portion of this. This is a stamp also from the BU stamp set. I'm going to ink it up with the spun sugar ink just to decorate the inside of that frame. Line that up really good and stamp that inside. And then I'll stamp the greeting in black. And I just cut it out and then I'll pop that up right over my watercolored floral background. Now I decided before I go ahead and adhere that I needed just a few more florals. I wanted to fill it in just a little bit more. I also really like to stamp off the edge of my paper. I think it is much nicer visually that way. Now that I have all of my florals inked in, I'm just going to take a glitter pen. This is from Sakura, and it's a clear glitter pen, so it won't change the color of the ink underneath or anything, and I'm just going to trace over "It's a Good Day." Just to add a little glitz and glimmer to my greeting. I'm going to pop that up with some foam adhesive in just a second. Before I do that, I want to add one more element to my background, and I'm going to take some liquid pearls from Ranger, and I'm just going to make little dots in the center of some of my florals, or the ones that you'll see that aren't covered up by the greeting. Now when you adhere these, or apply these I should say, they make like little pointed tips at the top. A good tip to have those flatten out is to tap the bottom of your cardstock piece or your paper piece and just tap it a few times and it will even those out so they're nice and flat. They don't have that like soft serve ice cream tip. So I'll show you again so you can see a little bit better. See those tips on some of those that I just did? If you just gently tap underneath those just a few times, it will make that liquid pearls flatten out. So I'll tip that again. You can see now, lost that little soft serve ice cream look, and I'll lay that out to dry for a little bit. Once that's dry, I'm just taking the Wink of Stella clear glitter pen. This has more of a brush tip, and I'm just kind of coloring in some of these florals, the darker pink, the picked raspberry ones. And then I'm going to take a white gel pen or glaze pen from Sakura, and I'm just adding a little detail to some of those red stamped little dots. Going to add a little, before I add my foam adhesive, while I set the liquid pearls aside to dry, I'm going to stamp my background, and I'm going to show you how to create an easy stamped background using this line stamp from the Basic Borders Mama Elephant stamp set. And this is the antique linen ink. I'm just inking up my entire card with these lines, and I'm not being really perfect about it, because once I get all of these lines going horizontally, I'm going to flip my cardstock around and stamp them the other way so that I'm stamping all of these lines vertically. It creates a really easy plaid background just using a basic border stamp. Now I could even incorporate some other colors if I wanted to, or color each of the lines with a stamp marker for a multicolored stamped plaid background. There's all kinds of things you can do with this. I just chose to keep mine pretty basic because I have a lot of color and things going on with the florals. Finish one last little stamping there, and there's my background. And you can see, even imperfect, it looks really great like that. Punched a couple little holes in my greeting block, wrap a little ribbon around that, and I'm going to apply some adhesive, and I'm matting that on some darker green cardstock to really make that pop. Kind of brings out the green of the leaves and things. And then I will wrap my ribbon around this piece and tie it in a little bow, and then I ended up adding a little resin flower just from my stash to the center of that bow to finish off my card. So this is just a really fun way to create more of a soft, more imperfect watercolor type card using Mama Elephant stamps, plus an easy way to create a basic background if you maybe don't have a plaid style stamp. Just another way to use the basic borders to make the kind of background that you want. Get my ribbon in that perfect bow there, and I'll trim the ends. For more information on this card and the supplies used to create it, please visit my blog at www.nicholmagouirk.typepad.com on July 5th, 2013. Thanks for watching.